Once upon a time there was a widow who had nothing and no one in the whole world to call her own, save for her dairy cow Bessie and her son Jack. The mother and son were always able to scrape by selling Bessie's milk, until the day came that her udders ran dry. "Oh, what'll we do? What'll we do?" said the widow, wringing her hands. "Cheer up, Mum. I'll go and get some work somewhere," said Jack. "We've tried that before and nobody would take you," said his mother. "We'll need to sell, Bessie, and with the money start a shop or something." "All right, Mum," said Jack. "It's market day today. I'll go sell Bessie and see what we can do." So he took the cow's halter in his hand and off he started. He hadn't gotten very far when he met a funny-looking old man who said to him, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning to you," said Jack, wondering how he knew his name. "Well, Jack, and where are you off to?" said the man. "I'm going to market to sell Bessie here." "Oh, you look the proper sort of chap to sell cows," said the man. "I wonder if you know how many beans make 5. "Oh, that's easy. That's 1 in each cheek and 3 in your pocket for later," said Jack, sharp as a needle. "Right you are," said the man. "And here they are, the very beans themselves," he went on, pulling out of his pocket a number of strange-looking beans. "As you are so sharp," he says, "I don't mind doing a swap with you. You're Bessie over here for these beans." "You're dreaming," said Jack. "A whole cow for a handful of beans?" "These ain't no regular beans. A bargain if you ask me. 1 skinny menopausal cow for 5 magic beans that if you set them in the soil overnight, they'll reach up into the heavens by the next morning." "Uh-huh," said Jack, just a little bit taken aback at the low blows at Bessie's age and weight. "Too right. Guaranteed all your money, cow, back." "Okay, then I have to say you have a deal," said Jack. There was nothing to lose. Either he was going home with some magic beans, or some regular beans, and coming back and grabbing Bessie anyway. So he handed Bessie over and sauntered off home with the beans in his pocket. Now this was quick work, so Jack's mum was pretty surprised to see him home so soon. "Back already?" she said. "I see you haven't got Bessie. You must have sold her. How much did she fetch?" "Mum, you'll never guess," said Jack. "Oh, true? Good boy. $500. 600. No, $1,000. Oh, Mum. Nothing so paltry as a sum of dollars. I told you wouldn't be able to guess. What do you reckon about these magic beans? All we have to do is plant them overnight, and then by the very next—" "What?" said Jack's mum. "Oh my God. Bessie had the best milk around, and she could have been prime beef to boot. She does not compare to a handful of beans. I ought to give you a good clip." Now Jack's mum actually loved him very much, and she'd never lay a hand on him. It's just something that she said when she was a little annoyed. And right now she was very annoyed. So she grabbed the beans, threw them out the window, and sent Jack to bed without any supper. And Jack was pretty annoyed too. What didn't his mum get? They were magic beans. So he slumped off to bed and was kept awake forever by his growling tummy until he finally dropped his head and fell asleep. He woke up after what felt like a full night's sleep, save for what he lost from the tummy grumbling, but it was pitch black. So he had that funny feeling he must have just woken up in the night and needed to get back to bed. But he went over to the window and he could see just a tiny little bit of light coming through around the edges. You know what was blocking all that morning light? Those beans must have been magic after all. It was an enormous beanstalk, reaching way high into the sky. You couldn't even see the top of it, and Jack couldn't resist the urge to hop out of his window and climb the magic beanstalk. So he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, until at last he reached the sky, and he saw a long, 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 long road disappearing into the horizon. So he walked along, and he walked along, and he walked along, till at last he came to a great big tall house, and on the doorstep there was a great big tall woman. "G'day, miss," said Jack quite politely. "Could you be so kind as to give me some breakfast?" Remember that he didn't have any supper last night. So he was absolutely famished. "It's breakfast you want, is it?" said the great big tall woman. "It's breakfast you'll be if you don't run along home. My hubby is an ogre of a giant, and there is nothing in the world that he likes more than roasted little boys and girls on toast. So off you trot. You'll be here soon. "Oh, please, miss. I'd do anything to have something to eat. I've had nothing to eat since yesterday morning. Honest and true. I'm so hungry," said Jack. "I might as well be roasted and put on toast as die of hunger." And the giant's wife was a soft touch, so she took Jack into the kitchen and gave him a chunk of bread and cheese and a jug of milk. But Jack hadn't half finished when there was a thump, thump, thump. The whole house began to tremble with the noise of someone coming. "Goodness gracious me, it's my hubby," said the giant's wife. "What on earth shall I do? Come along, quick, jump in here!" And she bundled Jack into the oven just as the giant came in. He was a big one, to be sure. At his belt he had 3 calves strung up by the heels, and he unhooked them and threw them down on the table and said, "Here, wife, broil me a couple of these for breakfast." "Ah, what's this I smell? Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of a little one. Be they alive or be they dead, I'll grind their bones to make my bread." "Nonsense, dear, you're dreaming," said his wife. "Or perhaps you smell the scraps of that little boy you liked so much for yesterday's dinner. Here you go, and have a wash and tidy up, and by the time you come back, your breakfast will be ready for you." So off the ogre went, and Jack was going to jump out of the oven and run away when the woman told him not. "Wait till he's asleep," she said. "He always has a doze after breakfast." And the giant had his breakfast, and after that he went to a big chest, took out a couple of bags of gold, and sat himself down and counted till at last his head began to nod, and he began to snore till the whole house shook again. Then Jack crept out on tippy toes from the oven, and as he was passing the giant, he took one of those bags of gold from under his arm, and off he pelted till he came to the beanstalk. And then he threw down the bag of gold, which of course fell into his mother's garden, and then he climbed down, and climbed down, and climbed down, till at last he got home, and told his mother, and showed her the gold, and said, "Well, Mum, are you ready to eat your words? I was right about the beans. They were magic after all, see?" So they lived off the bag of gold for a good little while, but then at last the time came when they reached the end of it, and Jack made up his mind to try his luck once again up at the top of the beanstalk. So he got up early, hopped onto the beanstalk, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, until at last he got onto the road again, and up to that great big tall house he saw before. Then sure enough, there was the great big tall woman standing on the doorstep. "G'day, miss," said Jack, as bold as brass. "Could you be so good as to give me something to eat?" "Go away, my boy," said the big tall woman, "or else my man will eat you up for breakfast. But aren't you the youngster who came here once before? Do you know that very day my man missed one of his bags of gold?" "That's strange, miss," said Jack. "I dare say I could tell you something about that, but I'm so hungry. I couldn't possibly speak till I've had something to eat." Well, the big tall woman was pretty curious, so she took him in and gave him something to eat. But he had hardly begun munching it as slowly as he could, when thump, 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 they heard the giant's footstep, and his wife hid Jack away in the oven. All happened as it did before. In came the giant as he did before, said "Fee, fi, fo, fum," and had his breakfast of 3 broiled oxen. Then he said, "Wife, bring me the hen that lays the golden eggs." So she brought it, and the giant said, "Lay." And the hen lay a solid gold egg. And then the giant began to nod his head and snore till the house shook again. Then Jack crept out of the oven on tippy toes, caught hold of the golden hen, and he was off before you could say, "Hit the road, Jack." But this time the hen gave a cackle which woke the giant, and just as Jack got out of the house he heard him calling, "Wife, wife, what have you done with my golden hen?" And the wife said, "Why, my dear?" And that was all Jack heard, for he rushed off to the beanstalk and climbed down like a house on fire. And when he got home, he showed his mother the wonderful hen and said, "Lay," to it, and it lay a golden egg every time he said it. Well, Jack wasn't content, and it wasn't very long before he determined to have another try at his luck up there at the top of the beanstalk. So he got up early again and hopped onto the beanstalk and climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed till he got to the top. But this time he knew better than to go straight to the giant's house. So when he got near it, he waited behind a bush till he saw the giant's wife come out with a pail to fetch some water. And then he crept into the house and hid himself under the table. He wasn't there very long when he heard thump, thump, thump. And just as before, in came the giant and his wife. "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of a little one," cried out the giant. "I smell him, wife, I smell him."
"Do you, my dearie?" said the giant's wife. "Then if it's that little rogue that stole your gold and the hen that laid the golden eggs, he's sure to have gotten into the oven."
And they both rushed to the oven, but Jack wasn't there. Luckily, the giant's wife said,
"There you are again with your fee-fi-fo-fum. Why, of course it's the boy you caught last night. I just cooked him up for your breakfast. How forgetful I am, and how careless you are not to know the difference between live and dead after all these years."
So the giant sat down to the breakfast and ate it, but every now and then he would mutter, "Well, I could have sworn," and he'd get up and search the larder and the cupboards and everything. Only luckily he didn't think about underneath the table. When he was done with breakfast, the giant called out, "Wife, wife, bring me my golden harp." So she brought it and put it down on the table in front of him. Then he said, "Sing!" And the golden harp sang most beautifully, and it went on singing till the giant fell asleep and started to snore like thunder. Then Jack carefully lifted up the tablecloth and very quietly snuck out from underneath. He jumped up, grabbed the harp, and made a run for it. But the harp called out, "Master Giant!" And the giant woke up right away to see Jack running for the door. Jack galloped like a thoroughbred with the giant hot on his heels. He would have very nearly caught up with him, just Jack had a head start and dodged him a little bit, and he knew which way he was going. When he got to the beanstalk, the giant was not more than 20 yards away, and suddenly he saw Jack disappear. But when he came to the end of the road, he saw Jack underneath, climbing down for dear life. Well, the giant didn't like trusting himself to such a ladder, and he stood and waited. So Jack got another head start. But just then the harp cried out again, "Master, please come save me." And the giant loved his harp enough to take the risk, so he swung himself down onto the beanstalk, which shook with all his weight. Jack climbed down and down ever faster, with the giant clambering after him. The closer he got to home, the narrower the gap between him and the giant got. So as soon as he was in earshot, Jack called out, "Mum! Mum! Bring me an axe! Bring me an axe!" And his mum came out rushing with the axe in her hand. But when she got to the beanstalk, she stood stock still with fright, for there she saw the giant with his legs just poking through the clouds. With no time to lose, Jack jumped down and grabbed the axe, and he swung it, burying it into the beanstalk. The giant felt the beanstalk shake and quiver, so he stopped for a moment to see what the problem was. Then Jack yanked the axe back and swung it again, cutting the beanstalk in two, making it topple over. Then the giant fell down and broke his crown, and the beanstalk came toppling after. The harp came around to singing to Jack and his mum, and the hen continued to lay golden eggs, and they all lived happily ever after.